In a twist of fate that left everyone astonished, a wealthy millionaire mocked his brother, who inherited only a modest, old shack from their father. But just a year later, the world turned on its axis in a way that left all eyes wide with amazement. In a quaint and rustic village, where the earthy fragrance of wet soil and lush grass danced in the breeze, Diego Mendoza stood solemnly before the crumbling remnants of the shack that had just been bequeathed to him. His rich, brown eyes wandered over the weathered walls and sagging roof, struggling to reconcile the whirlwind of recent events with the reality before him. Only a week prior, the shock of losing their father, Don Ferdinand Mendoza, to a sudden and tragic heart attack had rocked their lives. The news had sent shockwaves through the family, with Diego, in particular, feeling the sting of loss deeply, as he had always cherished a close bond with his father. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Don Ferdinand was a revered figure in their community, celebrated for his boundless generosity and unwavering devotion to agriculture, having painstakingly cultivated a modest yet thriving farming legacy over the years. As the will was read, Diego arrived with a heart laden with grief, more burdened by the death of his father than by any anticipation of material gain. Yet nothing could have steeled him for the stunning revelation that awaited him. To my eldest son, Richard Mendoza, the notary's voice droned on with chilling monotony, I bequeath the main estate, the fertile lands, and 70% of my savings. Diego watched as Richard, with a barely concealed smirk of satisfaction masked by an insincere display of sorrow, received his share. To my youngest son, Diego Mendoza, the notary continued, I leave the dilapidated shack on the outskirts of town, along with the ox named Carol and the remaining 30% of my savings. The room was engulfed in a profound, almost eerie silence. Diego was left reeling, unable to grasp the gravity of what he had just heard. An old, rickety hut and a single ox, that was all he had inherited. For a fleeting moment, he thought it was a cruel jest, but the somber expression on the notary's face and his mother's sympathetic gaze confirmed the harsh truth. Standing before his inheritance now, Diego was overwhelmed by a tempest of emotions: disappointment, heartache, disbelief, and a burning sense of injustice that seared his soul. Why had his father made such a choice? Did he not love him as much as he loved Richard? The mournful sound of the ox's lowing jolted him from his thoughts. A short distance away, tethered to a weathered wooden post, stood Carol, the ox that had been included in his inheritance. The animal, with its soft brown coat and gentle, inquisitive eyes, gazed at Diego with an almost palpable curiosity. Diego approached the ox with a heavy heart, extending his hand to gently caress its muzzle. "Well, old friend," he whispered, his voice tinged with a blend of resignation and resolve. "It seems we're in this together." At that moment, the rumble of an approaching vehicle drew his attention. An ancient Jeep came to a halt beside the shack, and out stepped Laura and Mark, his steadfast companions from childhood. Laura, with her brown hair tied back haphazardly and her green eyes brimming with concern, hurried to Diego, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. Mark, a tall and rugged figure whose face bore the marks of a life spent laboring in the fields, joined them, his gaze scrutinizing the shabby shack with a mixture of sympathy and critical assessment. "What a mess," Mark remarked, whistling softly as he surveyed the scene. Diego let out a harsh, bitter laugh. "Welcome to my new home," Diego replied with a note of sarcastic disbelief. Laura's face tightened in concern. "I can't believe your father would do this. I always thought he loved you and Richard equally." "I'm at a loss too," Diego said, his frustration evident as he raked a hand through his disheveled hair. "What am I supposed to do with this heap?" Mark, who had been methodically examining the shack's structural integrity, turned to them with a determined glint in his eye. "Well, it's clear, isn't it? We need to fix it up," he said with an upbeat tone. Diego stared at him, his expression a mix of bewilderment and exasperation. "Fix it, Mark. This place is on the brink of collapse." "Exactly," Mark responded with unwavering enthusiasm, "which means there's only one direction for it to go up. Think about it, Diego. You have a rare opportunity here to create something truly your own from the ground up." Laura, catching Mark's infectious optimism, nodded in agreement. "He's right, Diego. And remember, you're not alone in this. We'll be here every step of the way." Diego looked at his friends, and for the first time since the reading of the will, he felt a sliver of hope flicker within him. "Maybe, just maybe, this isn't the disaster it first seemed," he said, a tentative smile breaking through his weariness. "So where do we begin?" The ensuing days were a whirlwind of frantic activity. Diego, Laura, and Mark threw themselves into the task with relentless energy. They worked tirelessly to clear the overgrown land surrounding the shack, remove heaps of debris, and evaluate which parts of the dilapidated structure could be salvaged. Meanwhile, back in the village, the news of the Mendoza brothers' inheritance spread like wildfire. The community buzzed with discussions about the glaring unfairness of Don Ferdinand's will, with many lamenting the overt favoritism shown towards Richard. Some whispered about possible hidden motives behind the decision, fueling speculation. Richard, on the other hand, seemed eager to flaunt his newfound affluence. He drove around town in a sleek, late-model sports car and frequented the most exclusive venues in the nearby city. When he encountered Diego in public, he would offer a perfunctory nod, his demeanor distant and aloof, as though the disparity in their fortunes had erected an insurmountable chasm between them. One afternoon, as the trio took a well-deserved break after a grueling day's work, Laura broached a thought that had been weighing on her mind. "You know," she began thoughtfully, "I've been considering something. What if your father had a deeper reason for leaving you this particular shack?" Diego's curiosity was piqued. "What are you suggesting?" "Well, knowing Don Ferdinand's nature, I doubt he made this choice without a purpose. Perhaps there's something here that we're not yet seeing." Mark, who had been quietly pondering, nodded in agreement. "Laura's right. Your father was always one step ahead," Mark agreed, his tone reflecting the gravity of their situation. "Maybe we need to dig a bit deeper into the history of this place." A spark of curiosity flickered in Diego's eyes. The idea that there might be more to this inheritance than he initially thought began to take hold. "What if my friends are onto something? What if there's more to this than just a rundown shack and an ox?" Diego pondered aloud. "All right," he finally declared, his resolve solidifying. "Tomorrow we'll start investigating. There might be hidden truths waiting to be uncovered." Little did Diego know, this decision would set him on a path brimming with astonishing revelations, long-buried family secrets, and a series of unexpected twists that would irrevocably alter his life. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with brilliant hues of orange and pink, Diego glanced at Carol, the ox, who was grazing serenely near the dilapidated hut. An inexplicable feeling washed over him. He couldn't shake the sense that the animal might hold the key to deeper secrets. "Let's uncover what's going on here, buddy," he whispered, gently patting Carol's back. "Something tells me you're going to play a crucial role in all of this." With those words, the first chapter of Diego's journey came to a close, leaving him and his friends on the cusp of a discovery that would forever transform their lives. The next morning arrived with a tender breeze that rustled the leaves of the trees surrounding the hut. Diego awoke early, his mind abuzz with questions and a renewed sense of purpose. The words of Laura and Mark from the previous day echoed in his thoughts, kindling his curiosity about the potential secrets hidden within his inheritance. After a hasty breakfast, Diego met with his friends, ready to embark on their investigation. They decided to focus their efforts on the shack itself, methodically inspecting every corner and crevice for any hints or concealed items that might reveal Don Ferdinand's true intentions. Laura began by rummaging through the remnants of the old furniture still scattered around, her hands brushing off layers of dust as she searched for anything unusual. Mark turned his attention to the walls, carefully probing for hidden compartments or secret passageways. Meanwhile, Diego focused on the floor, examining it for loose boards, hidden traps, or any irregularities that might suggest something was amiss. As they worked diligently, their determination was fueled by the sense that each discovery could bring them closer to understanding the enigmatic legacy left behind by Diego's father. The quiet of the early morning was punctuated only by the rustling of the breeze and the occasional creak of the old shack as they delved into their search, each step bringing them closer to unraveling the mystery that lay before them. After hours of painstakingly searching every nook and cranny of the decrepit shack, the group's spirits began to wane. The feeling of discouragement was palpable as the sun climbed higher, casting its relentless heat on their backs. Just as their hopes seemed to be fading, Carol, the ox, began to act with unusual urgency, moving restlessly around the area outside the hut. "What's up with that animal?" Mark asked, his voice tinged with frustration as he wiped the sweat from his brow. Diego, sensing something was amiss, decided to investigate. He stepped outside and saw Carol pawing at the ground with increasing agitation near an ancient oak tree, its gnarled branches casting a long shadow over the landscape. Intrigued by the ox's behavior, Diego approached the tree and noticed that the earth around its roots seemed oddly disturbed, as if something had recently been buried there. With a surge of excitement, Diego began to dig with his bare hands, the soil cool and damp against his skin. His heart raced with anticipation as he unearthed something solid. "Laura, Mark, come over here and check this out." He called out, his voice filled with urgency. His friends hurried to his side, and together they worked to reveal what lay hidden beneath the earth. Soon, their fingers encountered a small metal box, its surface encrusted with rust but still remarkably intact. With a mix of reverence and nervousness, Diego carefully pried open the box. Inside, they discovered a yellowed envelope and an old, leather-bound journal. The envelope, worn but unmistakably addressed to Diego in Don Ferdinand's distinct handwriting, trembled slightly in Diego's hands as he broke the seal. Diego began to read aloud, his voice steady but laden with emotion. "Dear Diego, if you are reading this, it means you have uncovered the treasure I concealed for you. I realize that my decision to leave you only the hut and Carol might have seemed deeply unjust, but there were reasons I couldn't disclose in the official will. The truth, my dear son, is that you are not my biological child. Your mother and I adopted you as an infant, but from the very beginning we loved you as our own. Your biological father was my closest friend, who, along with his wife, perished in a tragic accident. This hut once belonged to your real parents. I preserved it all these years, waiting for the opportune moment to reveal the truth to you. Enclosed with this letter is a diary that contains the full account of your origins. There is one more thing you need to know. You have a biological brother, someone who has been closer to you than you could ever imagine. That brother is Mark. I understand this revelation will profoundly alter your life, but I have faith that you will face it with the same strength and integrity you have always demonstrated. I love you, my son. Never doubt that." As Diego finished reading, a profound silence enveloped them. The revelation was staggering, and the emotional weight of Don Ferdinand's words seemed to hang heavily in the air. Diego's mind raced to process the stunning truth, while Mark and Laura stood by, their expressions a mix of shock and empathy. The once simple search had unearthed not just a hidden box, but a revelation that would forever reshape the bonds of their lives. A heavy silence descended upon the group, an almost palpable weight pressing down on them as they grappled with the startling revelation. Diego clutched the letter tightly, his eyes scanning the words repeatedly as if expecting them to transform into something less jarring with each pass. Laura, her own eyes brimming with tears, gently took the leather journal from the box and handed it to Diego, her voice a soothing whisper. "Here, Diego. Read this," she urged softly, her compassion evident. Diego opened the journal, its pages yellowed with age, and began to immerse himself in the narrative of his biological parents, their dreams, their vibrant lives, and the tragic fate that had claimed them too soon. Each word seemed to echo with the lives they had lived and the love they had lost. As Diego reached the end of the journal, he lifted his gaze to Mark, who stood nearby, his face etched with a mix of astonishment and confusion. "Mark, is this real? Are you truly my brother?" Diego's voice trembled, reflecting the tumultuous storm of emotions raging within him. Mark, his face a canvas of sorrow and uncertainty, nodded slowly. "Yes, Diego, I had no idea until this moment. My parents told me I was adopted, but the details of my biological family were always shrouded in mystery." The revelation struck Diego like a thunderbolt, but amidst the chaos of emotions, a profound sense of relief and clarity began to emerge. The peculiar, unspoken connection he had always felt with Mark, the inexplicable differences in how Don Ferdinand had treated them, all of it now began to fall into place. The hidden family bond had bridged the chasm that had once divided them. "Well," Diego managed, his voice quivering but resolute, "this changes everything. But now we have a family, one that we need to stand by and support each other." Mark's eyes glistened with unshed tears as he nodded in agreement. "Absolutely. We're family now, and we'll face whatever challenges come our way together." The discovery of the metal box heralded a new chapter for Diego and Mark. The old shack, once a symbol of betrayal and sorrow, now stood as a monument to reunion and rediscovery. With Laura by their side, they were prepared to confront the future together, fortified by their newfound familial bond and a deeper appreciation for their shared past. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its golden glow over the landscape, Diego turned to look at Carol, the steadfast ox. A surge of gratitude welled up within him. He realized that sometimes life's most profound gifts are concealed within the most unexpected and unlikely packages. With a sense of newfound hope and purpose, Diego felt ready to embark on this unexpected journey, knowing that he was not alone. The road ahead was uncharted, but with the support of friends and family, he was prepared to face whatever came next. The weight of their newfound knowledge pressed heavily upon the trio, casting a shadow over their hopeful anticipation. Laura, her brows furrowed with concern, broke the silence with a sober reminder. "We have to be extremely careful with this information. If it falls into the wrong hands, the consequences could be dire." The gravity of her words hung in the air, and the three friends exchanged anxious glances, fully aware of the enormous responsibility now resting on their shoulders. Amid their intense focus on the investigation, they had almost overlooked the very catalyst of their discovery, Carol, the ox. It was during a routine task one afternoon, as Diego was fetching fresh water, that he noticed something distinctly unusual about the animal. Carol, typically known for his placid demeanor and sluggish movements, now exhibited an unexpected vitality. His coat, once dull and worn, gleamed with an almost unnatural luster, and his eyes, usually vacant, sparkled with an uncharacteristic sharpness. Intrigued and slightly alarmed, Diego decided to investigate further. With Mark and Laura's assistance, Diego collected blood and tissue samples from Carol and sent them off for laboratory analysis. The results were nothing short of astonishing. "I can hardly believe this," Diego said, his voice tinged with disbelief as he pored over the data. "Carol's DNA is unlike anything we've ever seen. It displays evidence of the genetic enhancements our parents were working on, but it goes far beyond that. It's as though Carol's genetics have continued to evolve independently." Mark peered through the microscope, his curiosity piqued. "Look at this." His cells exhibit an extraordinary capacity for regeneration. This might explain why Carol appears significantly younger and healthier than expected for his age. Laura, engrossed in Carol's veterinary records, interjected with her findings. According to these records, Carol should be at least 15 years old, but his physical condition mirrors that of a prime-aged bull. This revelation added a profound new layer to their research. Not only did they possess theoretical knowledge and data from their parents, but they now had a living, breathing testament to the efficacy and evolution of their work. However, this exciting discovery came with its own set of challenges. Safeguarding Carol's true nature became imperative. The potential value of Carol's unique biological attributes meant that if his true capabilities were exposed, the risk of losing him or worse, having his advancements exploited was ever present. The trio knew that keeping Carol's extraordinary characteristics a secret was crucial to preserving both his safety and the integrity of their research. The day of Dr. Alexander Vega's visit dawned with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Diego, Mark, and Laura had meticulously prepared their presentation, ensuring that every detail of their findings was well documented and organized. The sun was just beginning to rise as they set up the barn for the meeting, clearing a space for Dr. Vega to examine Carol and review the research. When Dr. Vega arrived, he was a distinguished man in his early 50s, with a calm demeanor and an air of quiet authority. Diego greeted him warmly, trying to mask his nervousness. "Dr. Vega, thank you for coming. We have something quite extraordinary to show you." Dr. Vega nodded appreciatively. "I'm eager to see what you've uncovered. Let's begin." The group led Dr. Vega to the barn, where Carol was calmly munching on some hay. Diego began by explaining the initial discovery of the metal box and the journal. As he spoke, Laura and Mark presented the lab results and the unusual characteristics of Carol's DNA. Dr. Vega listened intently, his expression shifting from curiosity to amazement as he reviewed the evidence. "This is truly remarkable, Doctor," Vega said, after examining Carol's health records and genetic data. "The regenerative properties in Carol's cells are beyond what we've seen before. It's clear that your parents were working on something groundbreaking." Diego took a deep breath. "Dr. Vega, we're concerned about the implications of this discovery. Richard, my brother, has become suspicious, and we worry about potential risks if this information were to become public." Dr. Vega's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "You're right to be cautious. This kind of breakthrough has the potential for both great benefits and significant risks. The key will be to manage this information carefully and ensure that it is used ethically." As Dr. Vega continued to examine Carol and the research data, he outlined a series of recommendations to protect their findings and move forward with further research. He suggested establishing a secure research facility and considering possible applications for the advancements in Carol's genetics. Diego, Mark, and Laura listened attentively, their hopes rising as they realized the potential impact of their work. Later that day, as Dr. Vega departed, he left behind a sense of renewed hope and determination. "I'll help you with the next steps," he assured them. "We need to make sure this research is safeguarded and utilized for the greater good." As the trio watched Dr. Vega drive away, they felt a mix of relief and apprehension. The path ahead was uncertain, but with Dr. Vega's expertise and support, they were better equipped to navigate the challenges that lay ahead. Back at the hut, Diego, Mark, and Laura gathered around Carol, who seemed to sense the importance of the moment. The ox stood quietly, his gaze reflecting an understanding beyond words. "We have a lot of work ahead of us," Diego said, looking at his friends with determination. "But with each step, we're moving closer to something that could change everything." Mark nodded in agreement. "Let's stay focused and keep moving forward." We have a responsibility to see this through." Laura added, "And we'll do it together, every step of the way." As they prepared to embark on this new chapter, the moon cast a silvery glow over the barn and the land around them. Carol, the ox, stood as a silent guardian of their discovery, embodying the promise of what their research could achieve. With a newfound sense of purpose and unity, Diego and his friends faced the future with hope and determination, ready to uncover the full potential of their groundbreaking work. As Dr. Vega's words sank in, Diego, Mark, and Laura sprang into action, gathering the research data and securing the samples they had collected. The urgency of their situation became clear. Richard's presence could jeopardize everything they had worked for. Laura worked on packing up the lab equipment and organizing the files, while Mark carefully prepared the samples for transport. Diego made sure Carol was settled and comfortable, aware that the ox's well-being was crucial to their research. Dr. Vega's assurance that Carol could remain at the shack, for now, provided some relief. The ox was, after all, the centerpiece of their discovery, and moving him might be too disruptive. However, the team knew they had to be prepared for any eventuality. The next morning, the sun rose with a new sense of urgency. Dr. Vega arrived early, bringing with him additional security measures for transporting the samples and data. The team worked efficiently, ensuring everything was carefully documented and packed. Dr. Vega's calm and professional demeanor helped to keep everyone focused. "We're ready," Diego said, handing over the final package to Dr. Vega. "Please, keep us updated. We need to know our work is in good hands." Dr. Vega nodded. "I'll make sure everything is secure and that your research is protected. I'll also begin drafting the paper and work on the patent applications. It's important to act quickly but carefully." As Dr. Vega and his team prepared to leave with the research, Diego watched the vehicle drive away, a mixture of relief and apprehension in his heart. They had taken the first crucial steps toward protecting their discovery, but the road ahead was still fraught with challenges. Back at the shack, Diego, Mark, and Laura knew they had to stay vigilant. Richard's suspicious behavior was a reminder of the potential threats they faced. They needed to continue their work discreetly and ensure that their research remained secure. Days turned into weeks, and while Dr. Vega worked on the next stages of their project, Diego, Mark, and Laura maintained a low profile. They continued to care for Carol and made sure the shack appeared as ordinary as possible to anyone who might come snooping. During this time, the bond between Diego, Mark, and Laura grew stronger. They supported each other through the uncertainty and stress, finding solace in their shared mission and their newfound family ties. One evening, as Diego sat in the barn, watching Carol graze contentedly, he reflected on how much had changed since that fateful day. The secrets they had uncovered had opened doors to possibilities they had never imagined. Yet, with those possibilities came a responsibility to ensure their discoveries were used for the greater good. The full moon shone down, casting a serene glow over the barn and the surrounding landscape. Diego felt a renewed sense of purpose. Despite the challenges they faced, he knew they were on the verge of something extraordinary. With their research in safe hands and their commitment to their work unwavering, Diego, Mark, and Laura were ready to face whatever the future held. Their journey was far from over, but as they looked to the horizon, they felt hopeful about the impact their work could have on the world. The discovery of Carol's unique genetics had set them on a path toward making a difference, and they were determined to see it through to the end. Panic swept over the group as Richard's insistent pounding echoed through the shack. Diego, Mark, Laura, and even Carol, who seemed to sense the tension, were on edge. Diego's mind raced, trying to think of a way to handle the situation without jeopardizing their research or revealing their secrets. "Quick, hide the notebook and any sensitive materials," Diego whispered urgently. Laura and Mark scrambled to shove the papers and notebooks into a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards, while Diego and Laura went to answer the door. Diego Richard's voice was sharp and demanding. "Open up." Taking a deep breath, Diego opened the door a crack, enough to peer outside but not enough for Richard to force his way in. "What do you want?" Richard Diego asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "I want to know what's going on here," Richard replied, his eyes darting suspiciously past Diego into the dim interior of the shack. "I've been hearing all sorts of rumors and seeing strange activity. You can't keep this up forever." Diego hesitated, knowing that a confrontation could lead to disaster. "There's nothing for you to worry about. We're just working on some old family research. It's nothing that concerns you." Richard's gaze narrowed. "Research? You're not hiding something, are you? I know you've been secretive. If you're hiding something valuable, I want to know what it is." Laura, sensing the increasing tension, stepped in to help. "Richard, we don't have anything to hide. We're just trying to sort through some old family records. It's not your concern." Richard looked at Laura, then back at Diego, frustration evident on his face. "I don't believe you. I want to see what you're up to. Let me in." Realizing that they couldn't keep him out indefinitely, Diego made a quick decision. "Fine, come in," he said, opening the door wider. "But don't expect to find anything that will interest you." As Richard stepped inside, Diego and Laura kept their movements casual but alert, trying to distract him from the hidden compartment. Mark stayed close to the corner where they had stashed the sensitive materials, ready to act if needed. Richard's eyes roamed the interior of the shack, taking in the sight of the cluttered space and the unassuming Carol, who watched him with mild curiosity. He moved toward the barn, clearly looking for something more substantial. "I don't get it," Richard said, turning back to Diego with a puzzled expression. "Why all the secrecy?" Diego tried to maintain his composure. "It's personal, Richard. I wish you'd trust me and drop it." Just as Richard was about to press further, Mark's voice cut through the tension. "Richard, it's getting late. You should probably leave now. We have a lot of work to do, and we're not going to entertain any more of your questions." Richard's frustration was palpable, but he seemed to realize that pressing further might only make things worse. "Fine," he said, his voice dripping with annoyance. "But I'm keeping my eye on you. Don't think this is over." As Richard left, Diego, Laura, and Mark breathed a collective sigh of relief. "That was close," Diego said, closing the door behind him. "We need to be more careful from now on. Richard is getting too close." Laura gave Diego's shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "We'll manage. We've faced challenges before, and we can face this one too." Mark took a deep breath. "Let's get back to the notebook. We need to figure out what it says before we can decide on our next move." The group returned to their hidden research, their minds racing with thoughts of the notebook and the implications it might hold. As they read through the pages, they discovered details about their parents' work and the dangers it entailed. The notebook revealed that their parents had been on the brink of a breakthrough that could have revolutionized not just agriculture, but also medical science. The tragic accident that had claimed their parents' lives was not an isolated incident, but part of a larger pattern of threats against those who pursued such groundbreaking research. This revelation only heightened their resolve to protect their work and uncover the truth behind their parents' deaths. As they continued to read late into the night, the moonlight casting eerie shadows across the room, Diego, Laura, and Mark felt a renewed sense of purpose. The discovery of the notebook, while unsettling, had fortified their determination to push forward with their research and safeguard their findings against those who would seek to exploit or destroy it. In the quiet of the night, with only the distant calls of nocturnal creatures to break the silence, the team knew that their journey was far from over. They were now more deeply entangled in a web of intrigue and danger, but together, They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As we wrap up today's thrilling episode, we've journeyed through revelations, challenges, and the exhilarating world of groundbreaking research. Diego, Laura, and Mark's discovery has set the stage for a story filled with intrigue and the potential to transform not just agriculture but possibly the future of science itself. So what have you learned from today's unfolding drama? From the secrets hidden in the old shack to the astonishing discoveries about Carol, we've seen how courage, curiosity, and collaboration can lead to remarkable breakthroughs. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What's one thing you've learned from this episode that you plan to bring into your own life? Share your insights in the comments below. Your feedback not only helps us grow, but also inspires others in our community. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue bringing you exciting and insightful content. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for more adventures and discoveries.